Supportive of the conservation projects.
The Honourable Ruth Dyson.
Chairman, I'm delighted to join in this debate on the Appropriation 2012-13 Estimates Bill for vote. Conservation. My colleague from the Green Party, Eugenie Sage, talked about the huge damage that has been done to our conservation estate as a result of the significant funding cuts. Interesting now that the National Party is talking about the funding over 6 years. 6 years is suddenly they've extended their time. It will make it look better unless people remember what year they were elected and do the real maths, which I think most New Zealanders will do. But Eugenie Sage was referring to the funding cuts and what a dramatic decrease will mean for areas like possum control. We will no longer be able to have the possum control that we need. Not long ago, the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment talked about our forests becoming silent as a result of lack of investment in possum control, and this is the very future that we're facing as a result of the lack of attention, lack of focus and lack of investment shown by the national government. We know too that in developing access to our recreational facilities, our conservation estate, our public land, that unless there is that investment, they'll just fall into disrepair. We've seen that with our huts, we've seen that with tracks, we've seen that with information brochures, and we know the impact that it has not just on our tourism industry, but also on New Zealanders who still, and I support this, expect that access to our public lands is a right that New Zealanders can enjoy. It's good for us, we love it, and we should be able to continue it. Mr. Chairman, the other part of this portfolio vote that I find very disappointing is the fact that when you look at all the portfolios, conservation is really one of the leaders in terms of the challenges, the opportunities, as well as the responsibility that it presents to the Minister. And on all three of those takes, Minister Kate Wilkinson has just really shrugged her shoulders and said it's all too hard. She's walked away from any responsibility she has as the leader of the protection and management of our conservation estate. The National Party has a constant mantra that conservation and the economy are a balance, that we have to balance our conservation values against our economic outcomes. They do the same in the environment. Well, Mr. Chairman, my view of that is that when it comes to conservation and the environment, that this government, the national government, knows the price of everything and the value of nothing. They say there's this balance between the economy and conservation. Well, it is a false dichotomy. There is no economy in New Zealand without our conservation estate. We know that their approach is narrow-minded and it's short-term, and it will mean that more New Zealanders will lose their jobs in the longer term. Their view that the environment and the economy are in this locked battle to the death is a view from the last century. It is not a view for the current times or a vision for the future. And that last century is the same century that gave us the failed asset sale program, exactly the same program that this current government is going through. That is not the view that Labour holds. We view conservation as a strength of our economy, as a critical part of the overall health and well-being of New Zealanders. It is not an asset to be flogged off at the earliest convenience. Mr. Chairman, as a result of Kate Wilkinson, the Minister, walking away from her responsibility, we have now seen subspecies like the Maui's dolphins, with only 55 of that species left, not just in our waters, not just in Australasia, but on the planet. You can't get much closer to extinction than only 55 animals. And yet when the Minister had an opportunity, along with her colleague, the Minister for Fisheries, to do something positive about this critically endangered species, they did as little as they possibly could. Mr. Chairman, not only does that put Maui's dolphins at an immediate and distinct risk of extinction, what has also happened is that internationally, countries countries are looking at us and say, how is New Zealand so backward that it doesn't have sustainable fishing practices, and now our fishing industry is at risk as well?
Grant Robertson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to pick up where my colleague, the Honourable Ruth Dyson, now